Good morning, Shadow Rock Church. Welcome to Shadow Rock Church Online. I'm so glad you joined us. We are going to sing to the Lord this morning. I encourage you to sing along with your family. Maybe set that coffee down because I don't want it to spill. And clap your hands, pat your feet, or tap your toes, whatever it is. But join us as we worship the Lord because He is worthy of our praise. Amen. On the clouds, kings and kingdoms will bow down. Every chain will break as broken hearts declare His praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Way before the King of Kings, the God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Oh, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess the Lord. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? 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 Tell me who can stop the Lord Almighty? There's nobody who can stop the Lord Almighty. There's nothing who can stop the Lord Almighty. Who can stop the Lord? serve a mighty God. The Bible says that perfect love casts out all fear. And I know that during uncertain times like we're in, there can be a lot of fear that comes in and invades our mind and our heart and our thoughts. But if we stand in his love, the perfect love of God, fear does not stand a chance. Amen. I want you to sing this with us this morning. Lord, we stand in your love this morning. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken, oh, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I won't be shaken. Oh, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. Oh, there's power that can break off every chain. Thank you, Lord. Oh, there's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. Oh, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Oh, yes, Lord. No, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in. Sing that with me. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Oh, I'm standing in your love. Oh, I'm standing in your love.
Hi, welcome to Shadow Rock Church Online. My name is Bruce, and I am a volunteer here today to welcome you to our online service, and we're so glad that you're joining us today. Hey, if you have never connected with Shadow Rock Church, you don't get our email announcements, or we don't have any information about you, we would love to know who you are. And you can just simply email us at info@shadowrockchurch.com and send your name and your email and your cell phone, And we would love to connect with you. And you can even type in there how we can best serve you. So we are exclusively online because of the COVID-19 crisis, but we are constantly in touch and we are looking for ways to connect all the time. So what's happening right now is our children's ministries is doing Zoom Children's Church and Zoom Sunday school kind of lessons. And it is just a blast to see these kids. If you are a parent of a child and you would like to get plugged into the Zoom meetings that are going on right here at Shadow Rock, you can email Cassie at shadowrockchurch.com and just email your name and how many kids you have and your cell phone number and their names and ages. And she will respond back to you, make sure that you're set up with the Zoom technology. She can help you with all of that. And she'll be sure to invite you at the next Zoom meeting that they have. We've had Zoom meetings also for our youth group. I've looked at some of those. There's been 40 kids on the Zoom youth group meeting, and they're just having a blast. Of course, we are looking forward to being connected in person, but until then, we're just going to try our best. The other night, we did a Zoom family night, and that was open to everyone in the church. If you have never done Zoom or never been part of our Zoom family night and want to be part of the next one, you can email Cassie at shadowrockchurch.com, and she'll be sure to connect with you on that. Put in your name, your cell phone, and that you would like to be part of family night or kids ministry or the preschool or youth night. Whatever it is, we want to be sure that you're connecting with us. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, I want to say a final thing as this slide comes up. There are 3 ways to give, as you know. You can drop a check in the mail, you can give online, or you can text to give. I just want to say, though, I am so thankful for everybody's faithfulness during this time. This is a really difficult time where we've gone from an in-person service week after week, you just pass the bucket and everyone, kind of pitches in. I am so thankful at everyone's faithfulness and how difficult it's been to do these videos and to go from where we're connected in person to now, 7 weeks, 8 weeks that we've had to do this online thing. And everybody is so faithful. God is providing, and I just pray that He's providing in your life as well. Let me make a final comment. If you are in need of anything, we have done food delivery for people throughout the valley. We have helped elderly people with their shopping. And if you need anything at all, you can always email us at info@shadowrockchurch.com. Because when you're giving to Shadow Rock Church, you're not just giving to us, but you're giving through us. And we want to continue to be a blessing for people in the valley. So thanks once again for tuning in. And we look forward to seeing you in person. But otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you every week right here at Shadow Rock Church online.
Hello and welcome everybody to Shadow Rock Church Online. My name's Greg, I'm the lead pastor, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. This is my first week back in about a month, so I haven't preached a message in about a month since my surgery. I want to thank all of you for praying for me. When I got back, my kids asked me, I was in the hospital at about a week, and they said, well, what was it like being in the hospital? And I said, it was lonely because no one could be around me. All of my food was delivered to me every single mealtime. If I wanted to go outside of my hospital room and go into the hallway and walk, which they were instructing me to do, there was always somebody to yell at me if I had left my hospital room without a mask. And then I turned to my kids and I said, what was your week like? And they just smiled and they said, pretty much the same thing. It's interesting when we talk about this pandemic. I don't know about you, but I am just getting a little exhausted about being quarantined and being sequestered and everything being shut down. I know that I've talked to many of my friends who've just said, this is getting old. And if you agree it's getting old, can you just simply raise your hand wherever you're at? Because I know that there is a ton of you that are completely exasperated with being sequestered and quarantined and talking about COVID-19 and hoping you don't catch this virus. it gets old. And so I wanted to start a brand new conversation with you that I am entitling, How to Find Peace During a Pandemic. I think it has a lot of relevance for right now. And when we talk about peace, most of the time in the Bible, it's a Hebrew word that is translated as peace, but it's a Hebrew word called shalom. In fact, if you're Jewish or you know someone who's Jewish, oftentimes they'll end a conversation by extending that special blessing, shalom. And when we talk about peace in the Bible, it's more than just inner tranquility, inner peace. Shalom actually means wholeness or completeness, meaning when there is an injustice, there is a breach in shalom. When there is poverty or sickness, there is a breach in shalom. It's not whole, it's not complete. Things are not where they need to be. When we're experiencing shalom and we can promote shalom, things are as they should be. Our family is good, our marriage is good, our jobs are good, our finances are good. And when everything is in its place, you kind of have this moment where you take a sigh of relief and your anxiety level goes down. That's shalom. And it's a wholeness, it's a completeness, and it's something that we can promote even in our world. Now, I wanted to show you a series of pictures in this video just for a few minutes. And if you are obsessive compulsive, can I just apologize in advance? Because after you see these pictures, you are probably going to hate me. But I think even for all of us, even if we don't suffer from OCD, we're going to look at these pictures and we're going to see something is off, something is not as it should be. And so I wanted you to take a look at these pictures and just see if your anxiety level goes up a little bit. Don't you just want to turn that Fig Newton around? I had to look at this one a couple of times. 23rd annual. You know, when you look at those pictures, you can tell something in those pictures is just off. And here's the thing. When you look at your world, when you look at even your circumstances right now, you may feel like something is off. And your anxiety level goes up. You feel this kind of pit in the deep recesses of your soul, in the pit of your stomach. You feel like there is this world that's out of balance and off kilter. It's the absence of shalom. And we want to promote peace in your life, especially during this pandemic. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to find that peace. You know, the world bases its peace on resources, how much you have. Do you have a bunch of stuff? Do you have something in the bank account to tide you over in the midst of a crisis? The world bases its peace on resources, but God bases his peace on relationships. Are you in right relationship with God? Are you in right relationship with other people? It's what Jesus was talking about when he talked about peace. He said, "Peace I leave with you, and my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives, and do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." He said, the peace I give you is not like the world's peace. It's a different kind of peace. It's the peace that rises above circumstances, that rises above what is happening all around you. It's like a force field for you Star Trek fans like me. It's like a force field that surrounds you, and there may be a chaotic world all around you, but inside of that force field, you're safe, you're protected. And throughout this conversation, we're going to be looking at several psalms. And Psalms is interesting. There's 150 different psalms, and it's poetry. Sometimes it was meant to be sung with a choir, but it's not a hymnal. The Psalms is just this deep place of worship and connection with God. Many of the Psalms are complaining to God about problems. They're complaining to God because things are not as they should be. This is not how it ought to be. And they're complaining to God because there's this disruption in shalom. But most of the Psalms is about praise and coming to a place where we recognize that our ultimate peace is when we're in right relationship with God. And the psalm we're going to be looking at today is Psalm 125, and it's actually one of the psalms that's called the Psalm of Ascents. It was one of the psalms that was written as the exiles are returning to Jerusalem, and they're having to ascend the mountains that surround Jerusalem. And the Hebrew word literally means to go up. And I always like to think of reading these Psalms, and we're ascending to heaven. We're ascending to be closer to God, to go up, to rise above even our own circumstances. And Psalm 125 is just 5 verses long. It's a rather short psalm in comparison to the other 149 psalms that are listed there. Psalms actually, in terms of a book of the Bible, is the largest book in our Bible. But Psalm 125 starts out by saying, "Those who trust in the Lord are as secure as Mount Zion. They will not be defeated, but will endure forever." And this is a group of people that had been defeated. They had been in exile. They were oppressed and persecuted. But here's this promise of God that he hasn't forgotten them, and they will endure. Verse 2 is a special verse to me. It says, "Just as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forever." And the great thing about that is God wasn't just addressing that to Israelites or people who are Jewish, because he's addressing it to people who are followers of Christ. We are God's people. And as the mountains surround Jerusalem, the Lord surrounds his people now and forevermore. The interesting thing, if you look at a picture of Jerusalem, as I'm showing you now, we're standing on a mountaintop and we're looking across Jerusalem, and you can see the other mountaintops that literally surround Jerusalem. That green boundary there is actually a boundary that would have been ancient Jerusalem. And you could just see that as you're sitting there and you're walking the streets of Jerusalem, pretty much everywhere you look around Jerusalem, it's surrounded by mountains. And it made Jerusalem a very strategic city. It was very strategically placed because it was highly defendable because of all of these different mountains that surrounded it. It was hard for armies to get there and attack Jerusalem. And that is why it became ultimately the capital of Israel. And God is surrounding his people in much the same way. Verse 4 says that, "O Lord, do good to those who are good, whose hearts are in tune with you." Now, we like to think of God operating in that way, don't we? God, do good to those who are good, to those who are in tune with you. But I think about being in tune with God. It means experiencing that shalom, that peace. I'm in tune with who God is. And the great thing is that God does good to those who are good, or another way to look at it, to those who do good themselves. The great thing about shalom is we don't have to sit back and hope that it happens. We could be proponents of that peace. We could be advocates for that peace in our world as we're looking around and we're seeing things that are not as they should be. relationships that are not as they should be. We can promote that peace. We can promote shalom. And God's promise is that he does good. He blesses those who do good, who promote shalom. Psalm 24, verse 15 says, depart from evil and do good, actively do good. Seek shalom and pursue it. And my prayer for you is that you do pursue this kind of peace. It doesn't just happen by accident. It happens for those who chase after it and pursue it with everything that they have. Psalm 125 ends with verse 5, and it says this, but banish those who turn to crooked ways, O Lord. Take them away with those who do evil. And it's talking about this justice of God, this ultimate shalom that God is bringing back to the world where everything is in its rightful place and injustices have been righted and no one has gotten away with anything because God is bringing that justice back to the world. And interestingly enough, Psalm 125 ends with this line, may Israel have peace. That word literally is translated from the Hebrew word shalom. May Israel have peace. And my prayer is that you have peace. After my surgery, my in-laws are living with us, and Trisha's parents were wonderful, wonderful missionaries in Argentina. They oversaw missionaries in all of Latin America and the Caribbean ultimately in their ministry, but they started nearly 25 different churches in Argentina. And in 1986, my father-in-law, Richard Nicholson, had traveled about 5 hours to another city to do a special service there with a church that was getting started. And so he got in his car, he drove 5 hours, did the service, and ministered to that entire community and to that church. And then he just wanted to drive back, but it was a long drive, so he slept in his car for a couple of hours. And then he started the long drive back, assuming that he was going to drive most of the night. He gets about halfway back and he's on this desolate highway, and this car comes up with their bright lights on right up behind him. And he thought maybe it's the police until that car pulled up alongside him and they literally started shooting the tires out from his car trying to stop the car. They got him pulled over, and Richard did everything he could to pull forward and to elude them, but they eventually stopped the car. They got out of their car. There were 4 men, and they dragged him from the car and they took him out on the side of the road and they hit him numerous times. He was bleeding from his forehead, and he really didn't have much money. He was trying desperately to take off his wedding ring because he was terrified that they were going to cut off his finger to get that wedding ring. But they got all the valuables that they could. They even took a box of Bibles that Richard had taken with him, and then they drove off, and Richard's just there bleeding, wounded, a victim of a horrible crime, until finally a bus comes along and he jumps on the bus. And while this is happening, Cynthia has no idea. There's no cell phone service. It was long before any of that was available, especially in Argentina. So Cynthia was unaware, but there was another missionary couple who were missionaries to Paraguay. And they woke up in the middle of the night from a dream. And the dream was that Richard was driving his car, and this ocean of water came and it tried to sweep Richard from his car. And this missionary wife woke up, and she woke up her husband, and she just said, I just had this extremely vivid dream about Richards. There is a missionary couple named the Headmans. And the missionary husband said, I think the devil's trying to kill Richard, and we need to stop and pray for him right now. And so they did. They woke up, they got on their knees by the side of their bed, and they began to pray for my father-in-law at the exact moment that this crime was happening, at the exact moment that they're shooting out these tires, at the exact moment that Richard's trying desperately to pull off his wedding ring. When Richard gets to the next town, he's picked up in this bus and he ultimately makes it to the next town. There's this small police way station, really. It's not even like a whole police department, but he's able to make contact with Cynthia and he asked her to come. And when she gets there, she didn't realize the extent of this crime, but she sees Richard and there's blood all down his face, and at that time he had a beard, and there's blood in his beard, and she just loses it and starts crying, and she realizes how severe he was beaten up. And it wasn't until later on that week that they made contact with the Headmans and realized that someone was woken up in the middle of the night and prayed for him. And they opened up their Bible and just kind of to the center of the Bible, let the Bible just kind of fall open. And it fell to Psalm 125, verse 2. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, the Lord surrounds his people, now and forevermore. Interestingly enough, Richard and Cynthia were telling me that story the night before I had a follow-up doctor's appointment from my surgery. And I went in and, sometimes you hear a verse in the Bible and there's a weightiness to it. And there was a weight to that verse to my heart. It was like God was using them to speak to me. And I went into the hospital the next day and I saw my surgeon and they're looking at my incision and trying to make sure everything is healing up okay. And then I talked to my oncologist. And my oncologist is going through the pathology report, and I shared this a couple of weeks ago, and he's saying they didn't find cancer in the lymph nodes, and they didn't find cancer in the 7 tumors they removed from your liver, and they didn't find cancer in your colon. And I asked him, is there any way I could ever be NED? And he says, you're NED now. And immediately I thought of that verse, Psalm 125, verse 2. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forevermore. And I knew God was telling me, I've surrounded you. I've protected you. No oncologist gave you any hope. My local oncologist said, no one will ever, ever, ever touch your liver. They didn't give me much hope. They didn't give me any kind of hopeful outcome. But as my oncologist at City of Hope said that I was NED, I was immediately reminded the Lord surrounds his people both now and forevermore. And God surrounded me. Interestingly enough, they put in this HAI pump, and it is the craziest thing because it looks a little bit like a hockey puck. It's about that size. And they put chemotherapy in there that's about 100 times more potent than the chemotherapy that they would be putting through the rest of your body. And they have to kind of find it in there. There's this small little place in the center of that hockey puck that they put a needle in and they fill it up every couple of weeks. In fact, tomorrow at the airing of this message, I'll get my number 18 of my chemo treatments, and they're going to be administering chemo into that pump for the very first time. And it's a little crazy because the nurse brings this iPad over and it has this little attachment, and she sticks the attachment right up to the side, kind of at the place where they installed the HAI pump. And I don't know if it's through Bluetooth or what, but it connects to that iPad, and the iPad is downloading all this information. It displays exactly how much chemotherapy is in there. I mean, it is crazy. I'm watching with absolute utter amazement as this thing is beeping and it's downloading information and it's showing how much of the chemotherapy is in there and is the pump working properly and all this stuff. It made me feel a little bit like I was bionic. If you're a child of the 80s, maybe you remember the Bionic Man. You have all this stuff that's in you. But I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, God has been with me. And again, I want to thank you for your prayers. But I want to just tell you something. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forevermore. And God is surrounding you. And I know that we all have a little anxiety from this pandemic, and we hope that we don't catch this virus, and God forbid that we would ever get sick or ever have to go on a ventilator, and we're in our homes, and maybe you're fighting with your family or you're fighting in your marriage, and you're wondering, what are you going to do for your finances? And everything is out of place, and it is the absolute definition of a lack of shalom. It just feels like everything is completely not as it should be. But God is with you. God is with you. The world bases its peace upon resources which you may not have. But God's peace is based upon relationships. And it's a peace that Jesus himself promises to give you. He wants to surround your life, to insulate you like that force field, just like the mountains that surround Jerusalem. And there may be chaos in this world, and there may be disruption in this world. There may be sickness and even death in this world, but there's this force field of peace that surrounds you because God is with you. And my prayer is that you would open your heart and allow God to be with you, that you would lean into him and allow his presence to just be inside of your heart, but also be around you, that you would make a commitment to promote shalom in your home and in your community and in our church, that you would do everything that you could do to put things in their rightful place as they should be. Pursue shalom. So open your heart right now, if you would. And let me pray with you. God, I thank you for each and every person that is listening to this message. I thank you for those that are paralyzed with anxiety. I thank you for those who feel stressed out, or even those that are just so tired of being sequestered and quarantined. And Lord, I pray that they would find peace, peace that is not as the world gives peace, but it's the peace of Jesus. I pray that you would surround them and that they would have this keen awareness, Lord, that they are not alone, but you are an ever-present help in times of trouble. And Lord, that they would find peace even in the midst of a pandemic. Lord, bless us, we pray. Do good to those who are good, or those who do good. Lord, bless them, I pray, in the mighty name of Jesus. Bless our families, bless our marriages, bless our church. And we commit it all to you, and we thank you that you're the God that we can trust in and find peace that passes understanding. We thank you for that. In the name of Jesus, amen. God bless you. I love you so much.
Hey, thank you so much for watching that service. If you missed last week or want to see more, you can click the video right here. And if you want to never miss a video, you can click that subscribe button and be a part of our online family. God bless you. We hope to see you again soon.